empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, 8 feet, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order live. It is Saturday afternoon. The Buckeyes are hooping right now. There's some great playoff football getting ready to kick off in the NFL. But this has been a huge week for Ohio State football. Massive news last night. Josh Proctor returning for year 6. Some big recruiting movement. Jadyn Davis got the royal treatment yesterday from Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, Corey Dennis, all going to visit him to try and kiss and make up after the Dylan Raiola fiasco. So this is a very interesting time for the Buckeyes in that 2024 recruiting class at that quarterback position. So it is going to be a spicy finish to this one. So hopefully we can get Jadyn to love us again, and we can get him back in the fold as he originally planned to be. With that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys. As always, we have the site. I can't believe how much we've been growing on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. Click that like button as always. Click subscribe. Comment down below. Will we get Jadyn Davis into the 2024 recruiting class or not? The Dylan Raiola thing is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in recruiting. Again, I think I know exactly what happened there. I've said it multiple times, but it's been interesting now that we're back to Jadyn Davis. And the recruiter at Michigan, Matt Weiss, who was the co-offensive coordinator, just got whacked yesterday. So it seems like the dominoes are falling for us to get Jadyn back in the class. So this is going to be really interesting down the stretch. With that being said, I'm going to bring in a guy. It's been far too long since we've talked to B. Moses on here. B. Moses, how are you, brother?
I am good, man. I'm good. Got the Buckeye basketball game on in the background. Looking forward to some off-season talk, some spring ball, some competition, recruiting, all of that stuff, man. I'm on it.
Yeah, I love all of the insanity that's been added to college football over the last 2 years with NIL, transfer portal. It just seems like it never stops now. Like there is no pause. There's no slow month anymore because you have the portal opens, portal closes, kids leaving, kids coming in, upperclassmen visiting because of the portal visits. I mean, we've had about 5 or 6 tackles that we offered. We didn't get any until we finally got the kid from Louisiana, Monroe. But what are your thoughts on kind of the speed of college football now? Because there was a time in my life where I worked in the program. I was a grad assistant for the O-line. We worked long hours, but I mean, there were some lulls where we kind of knew what to expect. Like, okay, we're going to be doing staff meetings all month, or in May, if you're a GA, you're not on the road. The coaches are on the road for all of May. Now it's like you never know what's coming because there could be a kid leaving on your roster that you have to convince to stay. There could be a kid coming in for an official visit that you weren't expecting. What are your thoughts on this? And then you have the whole, obviously, huge layer of NIL. What are your thoughts on all of the new additions to managing a college football program now?
Well, shoot, it's great for us content creators. There's really no true off season now. I mean, we always have something to talk about and discuss. So that's outstanding from our standpoint. From the coach's standpoint, I would imagine they're still kind of scrambling, trying to figure out things because these things you're mentioning are actually happening and changing and coming into play real time. It's still an adjustment period, I would think. So for the coaching, specifically Ohio State, I would hire every possible GA and analyst that you're allowed to hire and maximize everybody you can, because it's literally all hands on deck with everything going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that when you look at teams that have expanded budgets like Georgia, Georgia literally spends twice as much money compared to us on recruiting, which seems insane because, we still do well. We still do top 5 generally every year, but, there's only one. It's like Highlander. There's only one. So, I mean, Georgia, they've won the last 2 national championships. They spend more money on recruiting than anybody. And I think something that people don't really talk about enough is that Ohio State, we have to support, it's either 35 or 36 sports, and all except 2 of them lose money. So that's a huge hole that's a huge deficit that, like, Georgia has like 17 varsity sports. Bama has 16 varsity sports. Like, Ohio State has like 36. And it's like they all lose money. So And again, I'm not trying to denigrate any of the smaller sports or any of the little, like we have like a lot of ancillary sports that people love to follow and whatever, but we're good at a lot of them. Like synchronized swimming, we're a dynasty. Shooting, we're really good at. They're national champions.
Yeah,
But
shooting.
that being said, it's like, when you have half the budget of Georgia in recruiting and they beat you by a point, I mean, maybe here or there's some guys that you could have got because you could have got them on campus. You could have spent more private jet miles for guys to get on the road. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but it is fascinating that the team that spends the most on recruiting has won the last 2 national championships, and they're trending towards having multiple more. They're 14, the 2024 class might be the best class in the history of college football if they pick up the guys they're projected to pick up, including Dylan Raiola. Your thoughts on that? Would you consider shrinking the athletic department and spending more money in football, or do you think that it's better to compete for the President's Cup, which is like kind of the national, the most points in every sport, and it's like us versus Stanford versus Harvard or whatever every year for the top in that?
I mean, listen, I'm primarily a Buckeye football and basketball fan. I'm going to root for other sports if I see they're doing well. I'm going to share it and post it. I'm going to say go Bucks. But selfishly, I would love most of the resources to be focused on football because football is the juggernaut. That's the sport that pays the bills for most of these other sports. We know that. So selfishly, I would love to do that. But I know Gene and the athletic department, they have a bigger vision that's not just focused on football. So, we'll see how that kind of possibly changes with the NIL pressure being put on and whatnot. But I mean, if I'm being selfish, I want more money for the recruiting like Georgia does, so we can get a few more difference maker guys. Because at the end of the day, just like on the field, you're fighting for every inch. Same thing in recruiting. I mean, everything matters.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we've had in my opinion, as good of an offseason as you could expect, given, we obviously, CJ Stroud basically had to leave because the money's too great. Paris, we knew he was 3 and out. DeJuan, we assumed was 4 and out. Luke Whippler's the guy that I have been saying was going to leave for about 4.5 months, 5 months. And people didn't believe me, but I had a really good source on that, believe it or not. So I knew when he declared there was I'd been making projections for the 2023 spring depth chart, and they never had Luke Whippler on it just because, I knew better. But you get Tommy back, you get Steele back. Josh Proctor comes back for year 6, which is a guy that, again, he's one of the strangest guys, not from a personal standpoint, but just his saga where Jim Knowles in I'm telling you, it was like August 12th. I looked up the quote. He said he could be the best safety in America. Talking about Josh Proctor. Jim Knowles said that to the media contingent that covered his press conference. Yeah. And after one drive against Notre Dame, he got the hook ski. And I was like, never to be heard from again. And like, I've never seen anything like that in terms of that gaudy of a comment where he could be the best in America to he can't play until we're up by 75 against Rutgers. So what are your thoughts on Josh Proctor coming back? I mean, Nevada and I are super excited about it. I think getting a year 6 guy back to fill in with Lathan Ransom, that crew back there, Jihad Carter, who we just got from Syracuse, Kai Stokes, Sonny Styles. What are your thoughts on getting Josh Proctor back?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I posted it on my page, by the way, Buckeye Sports Talk with B. Moses on Facebook, I was like, wow. I was still kind of shaking my head my caption was basically like, this is interesting. Proctor's back, especially after Bill Greene mentioned that he was kind of pondering going to Florida. I kind of wrote it off in my head like maybe he's gone. But with that said, that comment that Nose made, isn't that pretty much a microcosm of his career? He has flashed like great athleticism and playmaking at times, but then we also see him just do goofy stuff, miss routine tackles and stuff like that. So I think that's funny that Noah said that because it's such a feast or famine with him. But I'm also, after really thinking about it, glad he's back because listen, man, some of these teams even recently have been bringing back a lot of seniors for the COVID year and having more depth than they usually do. Like now it's our turn. Give us that same depth, to have back there. And so if Proctor, I just feel like he's just this close to the light going on to being a consistent beast back there for us, especially depending on what position he lines up in this season.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, you saw what it did for the Cincinnati Bearcats 2 years ago. They had a lot of super seniors. They had a very old team. Like Kobe Bryant won the Thorpe. He came back for an extra year. I think it's a huge benefit. But, for Josh, like, I think you just have to, come corrected. You just have to play sound football, sound positional football. Don't try to be a hero. Don't freelance. Don't do anything crazy. Because, I mean, he's got to look in the mirror every day and say, hey, do I want this to be the last year of football that I ever play at high level? Do I want a chance to go on to the NFL? Because, like, he's already going to be overage. He's going to be 23, 24. If you're a 6-year guy, 23, 24, that's generally viewed as a negative in the NFL, just like in the NBA draft, how it's better to come out when you're 18, 19 than it is when you're 22, because then you're 22, you're like the old guy. You don't have any upside, any potential. But I think that, he's got just a massive opportunity. Ronnie Hickman took off. You got Lathan back there. I'm sure he sat down with Jim Knowles and Perry Eliano. I mean, Perry Eliano, one of the great mysteries of my life is why Perry Eliano does not coach our corners after he coached Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant. And, like, for some weird reason, and again, this is why I think most football writers are complete morons, is because Sauce Gardner had the greatest rookie season in NFL history, All-Pro, Pro Bowl starter, top 5 pick, 6 pick, whatever he was. And he didn't win the Thorpe. And Kobe Bryant did. He went mid-round. And Kobe Bryant's a Glenville kid, so there's nothing to denigrate Glenville or Kobe Bryant. But, like, dude, the corner on the other side of him had literally the greatest. I mean, he was the dude, So it's just weird to me that like the Thorpe voters are like, well, we're going to give it to the guy who they threw on more because they had Sauce on the other side. It's like if you're the guy opposite like Darrelle Revis when he was with the Jets, and you're like, that's the guy, not the guy that they don't want to test. But yeah, it's more that I have respect for Perry Eliano, because I was like, those were the two corners he coached. He coached the Thorpe Award winner and the guy who had the greatest rookie season in NFL history for a cornerback. And he coaches our safeties, which again, that's, after we just had this funky year with our corners where we had no picks, a lot of dissension, it was weird. And Tim Walton coached Jalen Ramsey. So, like, Tim Walton's it's not like he's never seen a good cornerback before. He's literally seen the best cornerback in the NFL, right, the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. So what are your thoughts if Ryan Day retired today and they made Coach Moses the head coach at Ohio State? Well, for one, that would be sweet. For two, what would you do? Would you keep it status quo in the back end of the defense, or would you mix it up? Or I mean, you don't have to go as far as firing somebody, even though you could. But is there, what would you do to get the back end back to playing at the Ohio State DBU level?
Yeah, so great question. And just a couple of things as I ease into that question. I'm hearing a little bit from some people I trust that they may be looking at putting Proctor at the bandit position. So, which is sort of like for those who don't know, it's like the outside will linebacker. That's going to be the linebacker with the most speed in a nickel type look, and who can cover, downfield if need be, stuff like that. I think that's a better fit potentially for him than deep, because he's such an aggressive hitter. He's pretty good in run support, stuff like that. But I also was hearing that the mystery of Eliano not coaching the corners is because of the safety-driven defense and how our safeties are going to be put in positions to have to cover, those wide receivers. Why not have your best coach who knows how to get their DBs to cover to be in the safety room, since they're going to be utilizing that role a lot? With that said, it's kind of up in the air of if that was really worth it or not after really looking this season. Because what's funny is early on our safeties were the strong point, and our corners were getting burnt. But as you noticed down the stretch of the season, our safeties started getting burnt and our corners were a little more solid. So I don't know what the dynamic is with that, but I mean, that's a great question, man. It's not enough information for me to definitively say, man, we got to switch this up. But initially, I was kind of scratching my head, like, why is Eliano coaching the safeties? But maybe one more offseason, maybe another spring ball, winter workouts will kind of help solidify that move. I don't know, but I know down the stretch our safeties were getting burnt, and they were peaking in the backfield, and they weren't being very disciplined, and it was very, very frustrating. So either way, that needs to be shored up for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing is our last 3 games, Lathan and Rocket Hickman. I mean, for as good as they were for 95% of the season, the last 2 games they played their worst ball, the worst safety play I've seen probably 10, 15 years. I mean, it's been a long time. Like, I mean, we played LSU my senior year, and our safeties, and I love our safeties. So I can't say. I mean, Kirk Coleman played like 10 years in the NFL, but it's like our guys just didn't have a good game against LSU. They had a tight end that like was an undrafted guy that looked like Tony Gonzalez against us. And again, it happens. Again, I'm not blaming anybody, but it was just weird because like Lathan and Ronnie were like playing at like an All-American, second team All-American type level, and they both came back, and Matt Miller, who's an NFL draft analyst for ESPN.com, he listed Lathan as one of his top 3 safeties coming into the 2024 draft. So, it's not like the guy's not highly thought of. And in this draft, like Ronnie Hickman's projected as is top 3 round pick. So again, we're not playing with a bunch of fish back there, but they just, for whatever reason, it was like they took their eye off the ball in the last 2 games, and it was bizarre. But we play a very aggressive defense where not a lot of help. So I mean, if you slip and fall or anything, man, it could be a catastrophe. But yeah, it's interesting you say that about Eliano playing, coaching because again, if it's like you coach 3 guys or 2 guys, because Walton's got the 2 corners, Eliano's got the 3 safeties, which again is kind of a departure from a normal defense where they normally play 3 corners if you play that nickel as a 3rd corner, which right. I prefer just because I like to have more coverage on the field, especially if you have a guy that can hit in the slot. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. What were your thoughts on some of the other returners? Tommy Eichenberg was obviously huge. That was a guy that I think has a real chance to be a first-team All-American. I think he'll be a preseason All-American. I think that a lot of being an All-American is having the requisite preseason hype, so that the voters know who you are and they hear that name and you come back and the team can do a little campaigning for you. And then you have that strong season, and then it just kind of confirms that you actually are an All-American. But talk a little bit about Tommy coming back, and then also Mayan coming back. Because again, our running back room is one that's fascinating to me because I think that as of today, it's the deepest running back room in the history of Ohio State football. But that being said, after spring ball, I mean, I would be remiss to think that we're not going to see at least one guy leave. You know what I mean? Because we have like 6 guys in there that can play really good, and if they went to 80% of the programs, they'd be the horse, the featured horse. Where it's like you're going to be a ancillary guy that might get a couple carries in garbage time. And again, I never fault a guy who wants to better his life, better his career. Same with the coaches. When the coaches move on and they go to be a coordinator, or Kevin Wilson goes to be a head coach somewhere, I do not fault that. So if a player wants to play somewhere and be the guy, there's a lot of good running backs that come from small programs. Tevin Coleman came from Indiana. Jordan Howard came from Indiana. We're going to watch guys in the NFL that came from, Isaac Pacaccio came from, wherever he came from, starting running back for the Chiefs, Rutgers or Utah or whatever it is. So
Rutgers, yeah.
Yeah, Rutgers. So it's like, they don't all have to come from Bama and Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson, despite what recruiting people think. But your thoughts on that running back room and maybe a little bit about, some of the returnees. Yeah, I mentioned Tommy, mentioned Mayan Williams.
Well, according to some of our fans, Tommy Eichenberg sucks, and they're not happy that he came back. I mean, it's funny you brought him up. I just made a post yesterday. I believe it was yesterday, where I don't know if you guys out there saw CJ Hicks' comment. CJ Hicks, his quote was basically like, yes, I want to get on the field more, but, Steele and Tommy are eating. You know what I mean? I'm going to get mine eventually. Let them eat. Is basically, I'm paraphrasing what he said. And then I had my own caption where I was basically confronting the fans about them kind of like not wanting Tommy Eichenberg back. Then I posted like I went to the Ohio State Buckeyes.com site, and they have all the accolades. You know how they have every players' stats or accolades, or achievements and awards, and I posted that just to kind of remind people, like, what are you talking about? Like, no, we're not saying this dude is Katzenmoyer or the number one pick in the draft, but he's a really really good linebacker. Are you crazy? Like, I'm very excited that he's back. And best believe CJ Hicks is going to get in. He doesn't even play the same position as Tommy Eichenberg. He'll be swapping out with Chambers most likely. They may even bring him into Jack Row and try him out. You never know with his athleticism. So just chill on that. Like with this, you don't want Eichenberg stuff back. You're crazy. So that's the one thing I'm very excited about Eichenberg. And remember, one more thing. It's only been 1 year in this no system, y'all. I mean, like this is another offseason of learning the system. You got your middle linebacker back to run the show to get even more comfortable. Like I'm super excited about Chambers. But with that said, with the running backs, yeah, we're all going to kind of be looking to see what happens after spring ball because this is super deep. Like it's just like two stacked. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So with Mayan, I want to see him just stay healthy. It's like there's some backs who have been dinged up and you still kind of see them be productive even when they're dinged, but he just was not himself dinged up. It's like he needs to be healthy to really be the player he is because he's such a violent runner, and it's like he really can't do what he likes to do as a running back when he's dinged up. So I definitely want to see him. And with Trey Henderson, listen, this is another thing about our fans. And, I think we're all a little bit guilty to this. Sitting on our couch, we call guys soft and accuse them of not being able to fight through injuries. We didn't know that he had a freaking broken foot or toe since Toledo, trying to play on that as a running back, trying to cut and all this other stuff. Like, that's not easy to do. And he still fought through it. He still played well against Penn State and made big plays. So I love what's coming out of his mouth as far as proving people wrong and basically saying he's going to be the best running back in the nation. And I'm not going to bet against Trey Henderson. People forget the dude is a dog. His freshman year, he was great. So, I mean, I can go on. I don't want to take too much time, but you got Dallin Hayden, Evan Pryor coming back from the ACL. I mean, it's a lot of question marks of how they're going to get all these players on the field and what's the pecking order going to be? Because at this point, is there really a sure pecking order? If you be honest, like you can't really say for sure depending on who's healthy. So yeah, man.
I know it's crazy because it'll be interesting to see how much we see Trey in spring ball coming off that foot. I think he needs to get some work in. Obviously, you're not going to beat him to death when he's coming off of foot surgery. Evan, he did his knee, so it'll be interesting to see how much we get out of him. Because again, I think that when you're a younger guy who hasn't done anything like Evan Pryor, you have to be pushed, or not pushed, but you need to go out there and show a little bit. And even if, like, again, I'm not talking crazy, but back your mind, you want to hit that portal. You want to have a big, he had a big spring game last year, and there was very, very big talk in the Woody Hayes that he was transferring. Because teams were coming after him hard last year. They were trying to get him NIL deals. They're trying to everything they could to keep him in the room, and they did. And unfortunately, he tears the ACL. But that kid looked explosive and fast in that spring game. The spring game is almost like watching the NFL Senior Bowl, for the draft. It's like people are watching these spring games, evaluating players. Like, ooh, maybe he'll hit the portal and come to me. We got some great questions in here. We're gonna take a couple questions. But yeah, I'd love to see Trey get back. I had plantar fasciitis and I had a broken foot in 2005 and played on it. And the only way you can do it is you got to shoot it up, make it numb. And when you numb your foot to play in a game, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Because when that wears off, it is exceptionally painful. And the only answer is, this is back before the terrorists put the little cologne bottles with fuel to try to blow the plane up, and you could bring alcohol onto a plane. So I used to bring some Crown Royal on the flight home because that was the only way I could survive, man. 'Cause my foot would hurt so bad after that thing wore off, and it sucked. So I had to have me a little Crown and Coke for the ride home. My man Paul, this is a great question. He says, should we use 3 linebackers instead of 2? Seems like a few long pass plays beat by poor footwork. Also, do you think we'll do Penn State night game for a blackout? I'll start with you, B Moses. I do think we'll do a night game for Penn State because that's really the only good home game. Do you think we should use 3 linebackers instead of 2? Appreciate you, Paul. You're the man. You're always on here, so thank you, brother.
Yeah, I agree. I think the blackout idea for Penn State at the crib is great. Break out the black jerseys against them, especially against them all whites. I like the idea. I love it, and I think you're on to something. I think it'll happen, but I only want to see 3 linebackers against teams that it makes sense. I mean, listen, our system is our system. We have to get used to it. We haven't seen a defense like this forever, Kirk. We've never played a D like this where
Nobody's ever run 3
defense.
safeties before. I've never seen
Right,
a 3.
exactly.
They don't even have 3 safety defense on Madden, I don't think.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I guess my point is that the 3 linebackers is our comfort zone. That's our security blankie as fans. That's what we've known forever, right? So, I mean, I get it, but I kind of want to see how this thing goes in this system, to see, if you get guys with another offseason with these reps, get Sonny Styles in there, see what Kai Stokes can do. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of want to see a little more. But I do think we'll get some 3 linebackers against, the Wisconsins. We'll see that. But for the most part, I'm cool. I'll wait it out and see what these 3 safeties can do.
Yeah, I agree. I just think with the evolution of modern college football, that 3 linebackers is a dead concept. Teams are always, 85% of the time they're in 3 receivers, and if they do have a tight end in the game, it's a guy that can split out. Fullbacks are non-existent. Like, to me, like, I always think of the classic 3 linebackers when I played, when we had AJ Hawk, Schlegels, Bobby Carpenter, and the guy that's like Schlegels, like Bobby and AJ could play today. Schlegel could. He'd probably have to get lighter. He was really heavy when he played. He was probably 255. He was, and he wasn't real fast. And those are the kind of guys that get exposed in today's game. Again, it's like if you compare like modern college football to the NBA, like Schlegel is like what like Patrick Ewing used to be. Like Patrick Ewing in his era was a monster, and he could go against Olajuwon and David Robinson and big centers, back to the back players, physical in the post players. And now you watch modern NBA basketball and like those guys are shooting threes.
Indeed.
They're yeah, exactly. Right. They're stretching the floor. Like Karl Anthony Towns wins the 3-point comp. So it's like back in the old NBA, the 90s. Patrick Ewing didn't shoot a 3 all year. Now it's like you get these guys that can stretch it out to 32 feet and shoot it from anywhere. And that's just how the game's played now. Like you don't see the big back to the back guys. There's a few, but they're dinosaurs. Like, there aren't like the Shaquille O'Neals and those types. Like when you watch these old shows on ESPN and Netflix of the old time basketball, like I used to love that era of basketball. I don't watch basketball as much anymore, but those guys were nasty physical guys, and you loved watching like Olajuwon versus Shaq or Ewing or Robinson because those were like big time battles. Now it's all out in space, it's all out in the floor. That's kind of how football is the same way. The big physical middle linebacker of days gone by don't really exist, and they've been replaced with, like you said, a bandit safety, like a guy who's like a guy that can match up in the slot. Because the problem is like you don't have enough speed when you play with the big old school Mike linebacker. So basically, your will is still the will. The Mike is basically what the Sam used to be, and then the extra guy is now the nickel bandit. Right. Dorito, whatever they want to call the nickel. Really, to me, it's just a nickel, but they always put a funny name, a bandit, a chalupa, whatever they want to call the slot guy. It's like, whatever.
Something goofy.
Yeah, it's always something for recruiting. They got to call him like, the Bitcoin safety or whatever, like whatever is cool. I'm surprised, like, just call him like the NBA young boy. You're going to play the NBA young boy safety since he's like the hottest thing out right now. All right, now. Why? Okay, this is a great one. He asked me, but I'm going to ask you. We discussed this, Brandon. Appreciate this one, Keith. Why did Denzel Burke take such a step back? That is the $1 billion question. I'm going to let you take that one, B-Moses, because you're new around here.
First of all, shout out to Keith, a.k.a. Keith Stone. Cool, Keith. What's up, brother? Good to see you. I actually was, talked about this earlier, Burke. I actually asked the question in the chat, and just kind of collecting all the data that we had and listening to his interviews, he seemed to be really behind the 8 ball in fall camp with injuries. He really didn't get a lot of reps with the injuries that he was dealing with. And as a young player, remember, y'all, he was a true freshman before last season, and he had a great year. He had all these expectations, and he's going into his sophomore year. So those reps were still sorely needed for him to really step in and take it to the next level as a second year guy. So even he said that though in his interviews, basically like, just being on the field, being able to get those reps. So once he got on the field and it started to show that those reps were kind of missing, he started to press when he was making mistakes. He started pressing, is just doing stuff that he wouldn't typically do. Just he'll be in position and he'll still let the guy catch the ball right over his head. He really wasn't doing that his freshman year. If I don't remember, he was really, really good with 50-50 balls and stuff like that. So I think it was just a mental thing for a young guy. So this is a huge offseason for him to really step up and show that he is that guy that he came out his freshman year and go out with a bang, because he could have a chance to bang out after his third year and go in the draft if he shows and proves.
Yeah, I agree. If I was Ryan Day, I would be, Urban Meyer always had this term. He's like, I'd be, knee deep in that cornerback room to see what's going on. Cause there is a lot of smoke around there. Like there's a fire inside that room. JK took off. Again, like for the lack of production in that room, it's almost stunning that we're DBU and, we're not that far removed from having, Denzel Burke and Marshawn and, I mean, even Damon Arnett was a first round pick. Gary and Conley was a first round pick.
Right.
Roby. And now we have guys that play with, because I think they all, the guys that are here, Jordan Hancock, who was injured for much of last year, they have a lot of ability. I for whatever reason, they don't have confidence. You can see it in I don't know if it's because they've been getting torched. I don't know if it's because they read mean tweets. I don't know what it is, but like the guys don't play with that same amount of energy and fervor. I hate the word swag, so I was trying to use any word except swag. I think swag's the dumbest word in the English language. It's like I hate when people say they have swagger or this swag. It's like if you have to say someone has swagger, they like never have swagger. It's like it's just like it's one of those things. But I hate
It's
that word.
definitely
But
overused.
yeah, it's terrible. But like they don't have like the I'm not questioning their mental toughness, but it's just like one of those things where it's like, these guys like, they get a couple completions and they just go in the tank, man, and they get picked on worse than any corners I've seen at Ohio State. And I think this is a huge opportunity, which is again, I don't know what the solution is, but I mean, I know when Perry Eliano coached Sauce Gardner and Kobe, two guys that Ohio State could have had in a millisecond if they wanted them, and they didn't offer either of them. I mean, Kobe's from Glenville, and we get every good Glenville kid, and we didn't want Kobe, who won the Thorpe and Sauce. So it's just, I mean, it's Christian Bryant's brother. I think it's his brother, or maybe his cousin. I don't know, but I know he's related to Christian, who obviously played at Ohio State and had a great career at Ohio State. But yeah, that's why I was wondering if Perry should shift over to corners and help out, because he's got to be able to do something to help Tim Walton out. But again, does Tim Walton know safety play? He's been a DB coach for most of his career, but it's a real interesting thing when you've got 5 guys in the back end of coach instead of 4 on every play. And that's more modern college football. But again, in 14, when we had Darren Lee at the Sam, I'm sure that, Luke Fickell was coaching him when he was in that room. But it'll be interesting. One question that I haven't really got to, and I haven't talked about this with anyone, is Coy McFarland left and went to Tulsa with Kevin Wilson. And he was the guy who's the de facto linebackers coach. He was quality control or an analyst or whatever his job was. And, Jim Knowles is kind of the de facto linebackers coach, but he's more of a walk around type defensive coordinator. And he used to leave that to Coy, and they did the same thing at Oklahoma State. It worked really well, where he would kind of run the meetings and run the position drills, and Jim would, walk around and do his thing. Be interesting to see who they bring in for that role, or if they hire someone else. I know Parker Fleming has been told he's safe as the special teams coordinator. I just think that, man, if I had that 10th spot, I'm getting the most dynamic, young recruiter I can find. Because, we have some of these guys that they're just not great recruiters and they're not dynamic. And that's a spot, man. With that extra spot, man, I'm going out and getting Malcolm Jenkins, or I'm hiring somebody that can he's a wow guy. Like saying Hartline he's kind of a unicorn because he's a former player, but he's a good coach and all that. But I think that there's a lot of those guys out there, and it's man, some of those guys in recruiting, they're just dynamic guys. And what are your thoughts on who we should bring in as a potential coach, even if he's an analyst to coach the linebackers? Because that's kind of one of the questions that going into spring ball, it's interesting because we haven't really made as many off the field hires as I projected we had made. But your thoughts on that?
Oh, I know who I'm calling immediately. James Laurentis. Come on back home, baby. Tell your boy Marcus it was cool while it lasted. He was a good friend. He came into the fold with you your first year, but now it's time to come home. Get Laurentis back here. I think Laurentis, obviously he's a great linebacker. But I'm assuming he's a bright, brilliant dude. He knows football. I could see him being a good recruiter. So that's my first pick. And my really only pick. I was a little salty. I'll be honest with you, man. I was a little salty watching James Laurentis wear a Notre Dame shirt, man. That just sucks. I really hated seeing that. He needs to come back.
I couldn't agree more. He wanted to come here, and nobody took his phone call. I mean, he tried to come here, but they just didn't answer the phone when he called. But he's a guy that, of all my teammates that I revere, James is right at the top. I mean, there's nobody I revere more than James Laurentis, who I had as a teammate. I was a captain with him in 07. He was a true junior captain, which, again, Urban very much diluted what it is to be a captain at Ohio State, because he started making everybody captains and two-time captains. And the one year we had 13 captains. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox about how we used to have 2 or 3 captains or 4, and then all of a sudden we started having the one year we had 13 captains, and I was just okay, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. But James was captain with me in 07. One of the greatest people I've ever been around, one of the smartest players I've ever been around, one of the toughest players I've ever been around, one of the most dependable. And again, I played with Brian Hartline. I know Brian very well. I know James very well. I think James could be every bit as good as Brian, if not better. But he just took a little bit longer to figure out what he wanted to do. He played the NFL about the same amount of time as Brian did. James got into broadcasting. James had a little bit better career. He had a big second contract with the Rams. James did broadcasting. I thought he was a fantastic broadcaster. I really thought he was going to climb the ranks as a color commentator guy. I remember Michigan State was playing Arizona State one night, and it was an 11 p.m. kickoff, and he was doing that game, and I was texting him during the game. N'Keal Harry was playing, and I was Arizona State's got a couple studs now out the wide receiver. They had Ayuk and N'Keal Harry, and I was texting him, and I was like, man, you're really good. And I think Arizona State beat him that night. They beat Michigan State. Michigan State was pretty good that year. And it just was one of those things where, when Marcus got the head coaching job, when you're the head coach, you get the ability to kind of, put some guys on that might be your homies, and Marcus and James are best friends. So, if James is going to go jump in somewhere, if I can go work for if my best friend takes a job at a major company or as a head coach and puts me on, I know that there's going to be a progression. He's going to, hey, I can't make you the linebackers coach. I mean, he could if he wanted to. I mean, honestly, Fickle did that with Vrabel, and you see how that turned out. Vrabel turned into the NFL coach of the year. Vrabel was never an analyst or a GA or an intern. And again, he didn't have to be. He's got, 3 Super Bowl rings or whatever. But in 2011, when Tress got fired, Fickle got promoted to head coach. We had one open spot on the staff, and he called Vrabes, and Vrabes took he took Luke's office, took the linebacker's job. So Marcus, I could see him promoting, James to be a full-time coach. And again, James, the attributes that you need to be a great young coach, he exceptional football IQ, incredible work ethic, incredible recruiting, and And that's James. Like, I mean, he's always been good at everything that he's done. He was a fantastic analyst. And I that was a guy that, it stung when he wasn't added to the Ohio State staff, because I just thought that he would be really, really good. Like, there's some guys that, it's like Jim Leonard. Like when Jim Leonard, was DC, when they made Jim Leonard like the safeties coach at Wisconsin, I was like, yeah, he's going to be awesome at that, because he was a really, really good safety and really intelligent guy. And then, you see how these guys kind of, work their way up the ladder, and James, I think he'd be a fantastic recruiter. He'd walk into any high school in Ohio, really, throughout America, most people, they know who James is. They know, the awards he won, multiple time All-American. So yeah, I would love to see James come back. I don't think it'll ever happen, just because I think that if I'm James, I'm hitching my wagon to Marcus. He's my best friend. Marcus is one of the hottest names in coaching after beating Clemson and having a nice year at Notre Dame. And they're going to be really formidable this year. Like, I'm not going to lie, they got the quarterback from Wake Forest. We have to go out there. I'm sure they're going to be hungry, and they have a really good O-line. So, I would love to get James Laurentis. Take about one or two more questions, and then I got to get Nevada in here. B. Moses, you got any other stuff on your mind right now? It's been a minute. We need to do this more often. This has been a great. This has been like the fastest 50 minutes in history, but here we are. We're at 41 minutes
50
already.
minutes?
40. It's been 41 minutes. So I said, hey, we'll go for 20, and I've already doubled you up.
Nah, it's cool. When you get the flowing, listen, I could talk about Buckeye football for hours, but just real quick for those out there, Ohio State Buckeye basketball team finally got off the schneid. They beat Iowa 93-77. Finally.
Yes.
With that said, fire Holtman. Sorry, no, I'm joking. I know that's, but they won. They won the game.
Water on my microphone,
so
man.
I'm happy about that. So yeah, there's that. But other than that, man, it's just funny that what's on my mind is the off season, and I'm going to do several part videos breaking down different things. Like Coach Day. I'm going to talk about Coach Day and his critics and his, where he's at right now in his career and how pivotal next year is. I'm going to talk about the defense and just different things. But one thing we should not worry about, I think I heard you say this the other day, Kirk. Make sure y'all get this to y'all's heads. It don't matter if it's McCord or Devin Brown. Yeah. We are going to be just fine at quarterback. I have zero with Ryan Day and Corey Dennis and these weapons in this offense. Now, I'll go ahead and tip my hand. I like both quarterbacks, but I think Devin Brown has the higher ceiling to me. I think he's the more overall talented guy. Man, we're gonna see. It's gonna be a nice battle. And McCord is probably the leader in the wheelhouse. He has more experience. He's been here longer. But I won't be surprised if Brown is right there to try to win that job. But yeah, that's primarily what's on my mind right now is spring ball and seeing that QB battle display.
Yeah, like worrying about Ohio State and the quarterback situation under Ryan Day with our offense and our receivers, it's like worrying about if like Nick Cannon can become a dad or something. Like, is this something that's just not like I'm never gonna sweat it. Like, I'm never, like can Jeff Bezos afford to buy lunch or go on vacation? Right. Can Future get a date? It's like this is like of all the things I don't worry about, man. It's just like I'm not worried about this. It's like this is what it is. But I don't know. It's just funny. But I laugh because I just don't. Dude, we like literally since 2012 we've had the first team All Big Ten quarterback every single season. And honestly, dude, when we had Joe Bowserman in 11, before that we had Terrell Pryor, we had Troy Smith. Even Todd Beckman was first team All Big Ten. So it's like if you take the Bowserman 2011 year out, it's like since like 06, Troy's year. We've been like first team All Big Ten probably 90% of the time over like 16 years and over 4 coaches. So it's like, why? Because the infrastructure is tight. We have good offensive line play. We have good receivers. Like, I know Brian Hartline is a great receiver coach, but back before I even got there, they had Michael Jenkins and Chris Gamble, and then when I got there, they had Drew Carter, and we had Santonio, we had Ted Ginn, we had Gonzo. I mean, this isn't like some revelation where it's like all of a sudden we magically started getting wide receivers. Now, granted, they're really high end. When you got guys like Wilson Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin, Mac. This is a really tight stretch. This is a very high level stretch, but we did the 2 wide receivers in the first round thing in 2006. So it's happened before, and we had Santonio the year before, but now it's a different level. And again, we just got to keep it right, and that's the beauty of this offense. And as much as we throw the ball, these guys all get to eat, because we throw it about 55 times a game. So, as long as Kyle McCord has a whirlpool with cold water in it that he can sit in after the game, put a big old ice bag on his shoulder, we straight. So it'll be good. Well, dude, I appreciate you, my man. I got a 4:30 for got to get Nevada in here, but dude, I appreciate you, my man. Let's do this again. I'd love to have you on here maybe once a week or so. I mean, the people are going nuts in the chat. So big B Moses fans, I'm telling you, man. So we'll promote this thing. This will be great.
I didn't even see that. I didn't even look at the chat the whole time. I got to circle back and check it out.
Yeah, you gotta if you see, I usually open up YouTube on one of my side windows, and I also have a little chat thing because I'm hosting it where I can see all the questions and I can apply them to the front of the thing. So, but dude, I appreciate you, man. This has been great.
Absolutely, we definitely got to do it again. I would love to hop on with Nevada, Bill Greene, the whole crew, everybody at some point. And tell Nevada I said what's good, man. Tell him I said what's up.
I will, brother. I will. I'm going to get him in here. We'll crank that up. But yeah, I'd love to do. I've thought about doing like a kind of like a staff meeting where it's like me, you, Bank, Nevada, kind of the whole crew. Yeah, I think that'd be fun. My biggest thing is like when I have someone on, like I like to do a one-on-one so you get a lot of talking time. Like I do that with Nevada and Bank, because like everybody always wants to ask you guys questions, and it's like if I get all you guys on, my chat thing might break because so many people will have so many questions for all three of y'all. So it'll be really cool, man. But dude, I appreciate you so much. Glad the Bucks won today. Enjoy these NFL games, and appreciate you, brother. Yeah. All right.
You too, man. I want one of them hoodies too.
Hey, man, we out here. Fuck up. I got you, my man. I'll get you, bro. I'll see you, brother.
All right, man.
All right. That was, let me get my, apologize for that. Hey, there we are. That was the great B Moses. What a fantastic, that's a fast 45 minutes. Appreciate you guys as always tuning in here. Hang around here for about 5 minutes. I have to go get Nevada. We're going to be live again, same time, same channel. So this live will likely shut off for a brief second, and then it will pop right back on with Nevadabuck. We're going to talk Proctor, talk recruiting, a lot of crazy stuff going on. We appreciate you guys as always. These NFL games are starting up, so probably go for about 35, 40 minutes with Nevada, get that thing cranked up. We appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys so much. BuckeyeScoop.com, that's where we live. That's where we're at. It's the best Ohio State community there is. So if you are one of the biggest Ohio State supporters in the world, you need to be there. Great people, very, very smart community, great business people in there. So you never know who is reading BuckeyeScoop.com, but a lot of the biggest names at Ohio State University certainly are. So we appreciate you guys. I'll be back shortly with Nevadabuck. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. We'll see you shortly. Have a great rest of your day. If you guys want to stay on with Nevada, stay here. Be back in about 5 minutes. Thank you.